Sometimes you're without water where you're at. If you're here in the grill, yeah, you understand the water crisis. We're still working through that. Okay, but it really is worth the sacrifice. Believe me. I mean, when I talk about the water crisis, I'm not talking about being without water completely. I'm just talking about limited amount of water, limited rations of water. And we don't need water all day. And of course, drinking water, you can buy drinking water. Anyway, that's another live stream, okay? I'll talk about that another time. But for now, I wanted to continue with part two of maybe a series of live streams regarding how I got here to this beautiful place, Negril, Jamaica. How did I get here? How did this happen for me? And it wasn't just by accident. Let me show you this beautiful view. Okay? That's not the view, but this is the view. There's water there. Yes. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful view. Water in there, in between those beautiful palms. Anyway, so how did this happen? How did this happen for me? Well, it happened for me because I planned and I worked hard and I saved my money and I retired and I'm collecting alimony and I sold my house in the United States so that I could take the equity and get more for my money. The equity in the United States wasn't enough for me to buy a home to live in. So I had to look around. I had to shop around. And so I decided to shop in Jamaica. Those are just a few ideas that I have for you guys. Now, if you need to consolidate, if you need to downsize, if you need to liquidate, if you need to invest, if you need to work a few more hours, if you need to go from working part-time to working full-time. If you need to find a mate, a roommate, a husband or wife to help you get to this point, I say do it because let me tell you, the sacrifices that you'll make are worth it. The sacrifices that you make to live in paradise like Jamaica are worth it. They are really, really worth it. So uh, I said all of that really quickly, but for some of my viewers, they really want to know in detail how I managed to do this, how I managed to move to Jamaica from the United States. Being in the United States meant that my rent was $2,700 a month. My car note, I didn't have a car note because I paid my car off. Work was sporadic and I was contracting as an independent video film producer and news editor. I was contracting and wasn't always working and couldn't always depend on a salary. So I had to, you know, find other ways to make money. I worked part-time for internet radio. I worked in the school cafeteria at my son's old high school. And I worked as a program administrator for the San Francisco Mental Health Education Funds, a nonprofit organization. I learned about nonprofit work and then created my own nonprofit media organization, the first of its kind after the PBS model or the KQED model. If those of you who are watching, if you're familiar with the Bay Area television station called KQED, then you know the model that I'm talking about. Nonprofit media is a real model because not only can you accept private funds, but you can also receive public funding, okay? And so, with the public funding and the nonprofit side of media, I decided to work with the City and County of San Francisco and the Human Rights Commission with a new program called the Dreamkeeper Initiative. And I did that in 2021. And it was my first time being contracted as a nonprofit media organization. Shortly after I got incorporated as a nonprofit. And speaking of that, being done in 2021, it meant I had 3 years to file my very first and second 990s, okay? And so my third year is 2024. As long as I submit my 990 before the end of 2024. Susan Reynolds. I'm good and compliant. I'm in compliance. I've always been in compliance as a nonprofit media organization. It is very important. It's key to be in compliance when you are a new nonprofit organization because you don't ever want to lose your status as you're learning to manage and to run a nonprofit organization. It's not easy. You know, each state is different. Each state has their own rules about being registered and state taxes and then federal taxes and being exempt, tax exempt or registered with the city and county, local business authority, or whatever you guys call it in your state or your city. Okay, there are rules and regulations for nonprofit organizations that must be followed to a T. Otherwise, you have people, random people from the public and constituents, you know, wanting to know what is happening with the tax dollars, okay? And if you are receiving any of the quote unquote tax dollars, you are to be held responsible for making sure that you use those tax dollars appropriately, okay? So I'm aware of all of that, and I've always been aware of it from the very first day that I started my nonprofit until today, and I'm learning more every day. But again, you will have the public coming after you wanting to know, you know, filing complaints if they just don't like the way you're living. Like, I decided to move here to Jamaica after my 3 years of contracting with the city and county of San Francisco. I gave up that nonprofit work with the city and county of San Francisco because of the way the, the city does business. It was wild. It was a wild ride. It was the wildest ride I've ever been on as a businesswoman, and I don't think I ever want to go through it again. To me, it just is not worth it. I mean, it wasn't so bad until certain people started kind of acting like they were just envious of the fact that I was being awarded these grants. And I was being awarded grants for the excellent professional work that I produce as a journalist, as a broadcasting, television and radio broadcasting journalist and producer and editor and writer. I do really good work when it comes to news, especially, and content, producing informative, educational content. I'm really good at what I do. And, you know, I'm an employer, I'm a boss. I hire people. And for some reason, certain people don't want to see someone like me be successful. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. It's too bad, but it is a fact. And as people of color and being a woman, you know, a very independent woman, an intelligent, savvy woman, you know, some people just aren't ready for it. And so Susan Reynolds of Reynolds Rap, of the Voice of San Francisco, I'm speaking to you directly right now, okay? Because you wrote a column. I call it a gossip column. You call it news, and you call yourself an editor. I call you a gossip columnist. You wrote about me retiring here in Jamaica without any real knowledge about me, my work, how I got here to Jamaica, and you went as far as to include a personal incident that happened with me and my ex-husband during a domestic dispute that got physical, where I was fighting back. I chose to fight back as a formerly abused wife. I chose to fight back, and I was swinging as he was choking me, okay? And in the process of swinging, I knocked his glasses off. That's all my 7-year-old son remembers. When the police came after me calling them and them seeing bruises all over my neck, They questioned our son, our baby, our 7 year old at the time, and he said, Mommy knocked Daddy's glasses off. He explained what he saw happened as I was being choked to the ground by my ex husband. The police arrested me, took me to jail, arrested me, filed charges against me. The charges were later dropped because the judge found out exactly what happened. And Susan Reynolds, you wrote about that in your article about tax dollars being misappropriated and not accounted for by me. I would never do anything like that. I've never been charged with any fraud. I've never been held in contempt. I've never been found guilty of anything. Nothing has ever been substantiated. As a matter of fact, the grants that I received were reimbursement grants. And if you know anything about reimbursement grants, Susan Reynolds, then you'll understand that the grantee is responsible for paying for everything up front. And then I had to go and try and collect my money. I had to be reimbursed, okay? And my hourly rate as a professional, I make $125 an hour. I'm not cheap, I'm not too expensive. So hire me if you ever want some video production work for broadcast, radio, or television, okay? Or social media for that matter. If you really want to come across as credible, hire someone who is credible, not someone like Susan Reynolds of The Voice of San Francisco with no credibility. She's a gossip columnist, okay? She assumed that I received San Francisco City and County grant funding with the Dreamkeeper Initiative and the Human Rights Commission because some others have used their grants inappropriately, because some others are choosing to spend city tax dollars on parties, because some others chose to go and dine and buy cigars and pizza with their funding. Doesn't mean that all of us did that. As a matter of fact, Susan Reynolds, the city and county of San Francisco didn't reimburse me all of the money that I spent to produce content from for the Dreamkeeper Diary. They still owe me money. I spent some of my equity when I sold my house in Fairfield, California last year of August so that I could move here to Jamaica. I spent my own equity to produce content, to tell the stories of Black San Francisco because I felt those stories were really important. They were stories that were overlooked. You need to get your facts together. You need to get yourself an attorney. Hey, Susan Reynolds of The Voice of San Francisco. You said some things about me that weren't true. You're spreading rumors and gossip. You call yourself a news editor. You're a gossip columnist. You're full of hate, envy, and I say envy because you went on my social media page and you looked at me and my lifestyle here in Jamaica. And it sounds like you got a little jealous, like you got a little envious, like you wish it was you. Well, I've worked for this. I've worked all of my life for this. Ask my ex-husband, Susan, you need to marry well, if you can marry at all, if anybody wants you. Number one, that's what you need to do. And you need to work hard. You need to work, like go into a newsroom like Cron 4 Television or Westwood One or Next Star Nation or KQED or KCBS or KPIX. Go to one of those newsrooms and work like I did. Pay your dues. And I'm also speaking to Stanley Roberts because you and Susan Reynolds have been sitting around like a bunch of gossipers gossiping about me and looking at my social media page. God, with me and my boyfriend on the beach, having a good time, discovering life together, being in love, and you're just making a mockery of it all. But it's real life. It's actually true. It's a storybook romance between me and Jamaica and my boyfriend and I. And it's all real. It's like a little dream come true, a romance novel set right here in romantic Negril, Jamaica. Don't you wish, Susan Reynolds? You wish it will never, ever happen in your life. It will never happen for you because number one, you're nasty. Two, you're a gossip columnist. Three, you're spreading hate. Four, you're willing to to attempt to damage someone's reputation. You even mentioned my son's name. So, you, Susan Reynolds, you're the lowest scum. You're one of those sewer rats in San Francisco. You're like poop on the sidewalk in San Francisco. You're like the worst kind. You should be ashamed of yourself. Stanley Roberts, you should be ashamed of your relationship with Susan Reynolds. And you were never, Stanley, you were never a mentor of mine. As a matter of fact, you were a sexual assaulter. You sexually assaulted me at my Christmas party when I invited you shortly after you were fired from Cron 4 Television. Yeah, I felt sorry for the fact that they fired you and kept people behaving badly as their own. You created that production, and I thought it was wrong that they did that to you. But now that I understand intellectual property and trademarking and all of that, see, I do my homework, I'm educated, I'm knowledgeable about business. And I had to teach myself. I had to learn on my own. And, that's what college did for me also. I graduated from San Francisco State and their broadcast electronic communication arts department. I'm proud to say that I am the first in my family to graduate college. Now, that was after I dropped out of high school to help my mom raise my little brothers, and I sacrificed my own life to serve others. That's all I've ever done. And so here I am in beautiful Negril, Jamaica, able to retire like this because I have done the work for years and years and years. I've paid my dues. I produced content about Black San Francisco with the Dreamkeeper Diary and the Dreamkeeper Initiative. That was what my contract was all about. I was contracted to tell the stories about the people in San Francisco that have been overlooked, ignored, and underrepresented in television and in radio. And because Mayor London Breed, Supervisor Shimon Walton, and Director Cheryl Evans Davis, because they got together to reinvest in Black San Francisco, I decided to tell that story of who was actually showing their support and reinvesting in Black San Francisco. Now, I was born and raised in San Francisco. Born in San Francisco in 1965. Worked all of my life, went to school in San Francisco, and I love the city of San Francisco so much that I really wanted to make sure that Black people like me and my family were represented. And so I signed the contract. Initially, the Human Rights Commission offered me just $50,000 to do that work. I was so excited because that was one of the biggest contracts I had ever made. I couldn't believe that I actually did it. I wrote my very first grant for the first time on my own. I took a chance writing that RFQ, and I was successful the first time. If anybody out there wants to know how to write a grant, hey, reach out to me. Let me know. I'm happy to help. I was fortunate enough to be a really strong writer in school. Then I had great references. I had people who supported my broadcasting work, who believed in me, who had worked with me. That's another good thing, when you have great references, people that know you, your character, your personality, they know your work ethos, and they know that you are a person of integrity and commitment. And, I consider myself excellent. Yeah, I do my best in everything. And so I have people that know me, that know who I am, and those were my references that I included in my grant that I wrote for the Dreamkeeper Initiative. I was successful. They offered me $50,000. I was happy for it. I went to work and I produced 33 episodes for the Dreamkeeper Diary. And I did it in less than 6 months for them. That's how extraordinary my work was. They appreciated the work so much that they asked me to continue the work and offered me another 50,000. I doubled that grant in less than a year. And then the following year, they extended my grant, okay? And added another 100,000. All right? And because the Juneteenth celebrations came around and they needed coverage for Juneteenth, all of the Juneteenth celebrations in San Francisco, as well as all of the reparations listening sessions, my team and I covered all of that. And we went slightly over 200,000 by $4,000, and then we ended our contract. So there it is, Susan Reynolds. That's what I did with the Dreamkeeper Initiative. And every dollar that I spent producing the Dreamkeeper Diary content for the Dreamkeeper Initiative, every dollar was spent on my camera operators, on my field producers, on my interns, on the editing that I do myself, on all of the graphics that I did myself, all of those episodes that you see on Clari-T Media, I produced. Black woman-owned Clari-T Media. I'm proud of my work. There is no way possible that I could ever retire in Jamaica on $200,000 spent on productions that have been produced and published on YouTube. It doesn't make any sense. Susan Reynolds, of the Voice of San Francisco, gossip columnist, and Stanley Roberts. It's no way possible. I retired in Jamaica when I sold my home in Fairfield, California, my home of 23 years. I invested in real estate when I was married with my husband for 20 plus years together, raising our children. Yeah, we had some problems in our marriage. I was an abused wife. I saved my life. I got out of that relationship, saved my children and their lives so that they could see their mom living happily ever after, so that they could see their dad get his life together and live happily ever after as well, so that we could be examples of great Black parenting. I got out of that abusive relationship alive. And I am doing my best to be an example to my children of how to live happily ever after and how to live a healthy life without abuse. So Susan Reynolds of the Voice of San Francisco, how dare you bring up that domestic violent episode in my life, a very sad and trying time in my life. And insinuate that I'm some kind of criminal. And how dare you insinuate that I would steal city funding, taxpayer dollars to retire in Jamaica? That is impossible. I'm living on alimony, Susan Reynolds. Marry well, if you can marry it at all, if anybody wants you. And God forbid you ever have to go through a divorce or abuse or domestic violence like I had to. Being in California protected me. So I'm getting alimony for as long as the judge fit, sees it fit for me. Okay? I've also worked all of my life. I retired from several jobs and I received retirement of my own. I received my ex-husband's retirement as well, Susan Reynolds. Let's see if you can do something like that yourself. Okay? It's not easy. It takes skills. It takes the heart of a humble human being willing to sacrifice yourself for others. It takes a commitment as a wife and a mother. You have to pay your dues in order to be rewarded like this. Susan Reynolds of the Voice of San Francisco. You call yourself a journalist. You're a gossip columnist. You're following me, and I hope you enjoy this live stream. I hope you learn something from this, okay? And I still have not applied for Social Security. I've worked since I was 15 years old. Actually, I started working at 12 when I was delivering the newspapers for the San Francisco Chronicle. That's when I began my journalism career. Okay? Susan Reynolds, when did you start working in journalism? I wrote for my high school newspaper. I was asked to write for my high school newspaper. That's how interesting I am as a person. I don't have to go around snooping on people's social media sites, acting envious and jealous of what I see because someone's happy and living their fantasy life, a dream life like I am here in Jamaica. I was in the United States, around a bunch of losers after my divorce. I dated for a little while unsuccessfully, dated some ex-boyfriends unsuccessfully, you know. Gosh, that's a whole nother live stream, and I'll do that too because that's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting, the dynamics in the Bay Area for single women. There are so many single women. I feel sorry for you. Sisters, come to Jamaica. These men here, not only do they want you, but they really do need great women to help them have better lives. And they're willing to help us have better lives. They're willing to love us like we've never been loved before. I know from experience, I have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful boyfriend. He treats me so good. We go out 3 or 4 times a week. We listen to live reggae. We eat romantic dinners together by candlelight, looking out at the water, over the cliffs on the west end of Negril, at the beach, at my favorite canoe bar. Oh my gosh, we walk hand in hand. We sit up all night. We talk about our lives. He takes me to the countryside to visit his family, to spend time sitting out on the veranda on the porch like this, watching lightning shows, watching the sunset in the grill. If you guys don't know about the sunsets here in the grill, oh my gosh, let me flip the camera around just for a second here. Reception's been good, so I'm going to let you see the view here. Bear with me. Look at that. That's the ocean there. Let me zoom in. Okay? From where I'm sitting, gorgeous, gorgeous views. The most beautiful views. My gosh. Now, a lot of people wouldn't come here to Jamaica to live because they think it's so violent and it's so, rough to live here. It's not. Jamaica is a beautiful place. Yeah, there are some differences. There are some sacrifices you have to make. But compared to the United States, where I'm from, the Bay Area, gosh, man, I gave up a lot. I gave up Chick-fil-A and Sephora and roller skating at my favorite roller skating rink, but it's well worth it. I have retired in Jamaica. And the question for me earlier was, can I retire? I'm running out of breath, y'all, excuse me. Earlier I had the question, can I retire in Jamaica? Turns out that I can because I've been able to afford it. And I've found love here in Jamaica, and I have friends in Jamaica. I'm finally getting used to the food in Jamaica. I'm getting used to the heat in Jamaica. Whew, man, I never thought I could. I never thought I could adjust here. And I don't have any family here. I don't have any friends from the States or people that I've grown up with. I came here because I didn't have a choice. I came here because I'm working on a budget. I'm living on a budget. And it's not a budget that includes city funding from San Francisco. How dare you accuse me of that, Susan Reynolds? You better get yourself a good attorney. Get yourself a good attorney because I could use a settlement. I really could. And for all of the terrible things that you said about me and the insinuations and the assumptions and all of the smearing and all of the unsubstantiated hearsay and gossip, you and Stanley Roberts need to get yourselves attorneys. I have a reputation that I've worked hard to build. I was the only black woman on the radio in Northern California, in the northern region of the United States, when I was on the air reporting for KCBS radio. And I was proud and still am proud of that accomplishment. I was the first digital content producer in the United States of America. And I did that for Next Star Nation and Cron 4 Television in 2019 when I launched Cron on 24-hour news stream, the very first of its kind. I launched that single-handedly. And there is no way I will ever let someone like Susan Reynolds or Stanley Roberts tarnish my good reputation or the reputation of my family. They're a hardworking family. They raised me right. And that's what I've done. I worked hard, did everything right. So that's part 2 of addressing Reynolds Rap. You better get yourself an attorney, Susan Reynolds and Stanley Roberts. This is Alicia Mayo of Clari-T Media. I'm so sorry that I had to take this time, 35 minutes of precious time to address the mess, the gossip of Susan Reynolds of Reynolds Rap and the voice of San Francisco. You're not speaking for San Franciscans. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. And Stanley Roberts, you lied when you said you were a mentor to me. You were never a mentor to me. I felt sorry for you when you were fired from Cron 4 for behaving badly yourself. And then you were invited to my holiday party in 2017. You showed up, you had a good time with the crowd and everything, and you were the last to leave. And remember that kiss that you stole, that you forced on me? You better be glad I didn't file charges against you, because I could have. Did you tell Susan Reynolds about that? I bet you didn't. I bet you didn't. So now it's out, and it's substantiated, and I can prove it. I have the receipts. I have all of the receipts to all of the work that I've ever done with the city and county of San Francisco. I have all of my 990s, and I do have a website, Susan Reynolds. It's www.claritmedia, claritymedia.org. Go to my YouTube channel, subscribe, follow, go to my website, check out my content, go to my LinkedIn profile, check out my work history and who I am, follow me on Facebook, check me out on Instagram at radiotvqueen.alicia. I'm everywhere. I have nothing to hide, and I'm proud of my legacy. Clari-T Media is Black woman-owned nonprofit media, human stories, and grassroots solutions. That's what I'm all about. All right, you guys, thanks for listening. I'm gonna go now. Gonna reach out to some other folks. Let me say hello to everyone. Thank you all for tuning in. JVJV, Javid Bagwan, thank you so much. Hi, hi. Junior Vega, thank you so much for your compliment. Thank you, Nikhil K. Hey, babe. Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, Meticulous. Kush Lemon. What about Jamaican snakes? People ask me about Jamaican snakes. There are really real snakes. They're real snakes here. And they're not all poisonous. And they exist. They do exist. All right. But Jamaica is a beautiful place. Negril, Jamaica in particular, is a really, really beautiful place. It used to be really country. Not a lot of folks were here. And then in the 70s, the hippies showed up. They were coming to get high and lay out on the beach. And the Jamaican people here in Negril took them in, gave them places to stay, gave them food to eat, cooked for them, and just treated them like family, total strangers, you know. And that's the heart and soul of Jamaican people. They're just good, genuine people. They have welcomed me as well, made me feel at home, being that I didn't have any family here. I was really nervous and afraid and kind of sad actually when I had to move here. But I came here the first time for a 1 week retreat during some more divorce stuff with my ex-husband. You guys know the story. You heard it earlier. If you didn't, play this back and you'll hear. He was taking me to court again and again and again, and I was just exhausted, tired, stressed out, sad, full of anxiety. So I came here to a yoga retreat, to a wellness retreat for 1 week, just to get my mind right and to kind of rejuvenate, and fell in love. Absolutely fell in love with this beautiful healing place. And I never forgot it. And every chance that I had after that, and every dollar that I could save of my own money, after I sold my house, that was part of the divorce. We had to divide the equity with the marital home that I was actually living in, and I had to sell it. I was really sad about that. Living in a home for 23 years, raised the kids there. It was our first home. I was really, really sad and overwhelmed with the fact that I had to move out. I didn't know where I was going. My sons had moved in with their dad, you know, because they're young men and they wanted to be with their father, becoming men. And, you know, they were visiting me, but they were also worried about where I'd be living. And they would ask me, Mom, where are you going to go? We hear Dad talking about what's happening, where are you going to go? Can you imagine what I was going through? I also lost my brother. My brother was murdered. My mom was diagnosed with cancer. My cousin died of esophagus cancer, esophageal, however you say it. She died of cancer at 33, left behind her children and her husband. Her father passed away. My grandmother passed away. My grandfather passed away. I've been through so much. I've been through so much. I was in a horrible relationship after my ex-husband and my marriage. I mean, things just kept getting worse. And I was doing everything in my power not to succumb to it all. I did everything in my power, you know. I aged. I went gray. I got sad. I gained weight, lost some confidence, lost some friendships, was angry a lot. There's so much that people go through. And for someone like Susan Reynolds of the Voice of San Francisco to misuse her public trust as a quote unquote news editor, I consider her more like a tabloid smear campaigner, a MAGA representative, a hater, an envious, jealous person out for blood. Yeah, to take advantage of someone like me who hasn't done anything wrong and to insinuate and assume and draw conclusions without any facts is really, really wrong, and you will pay for it. You will pay for it because it's just so unfair. So unfair. The way you're using your media platform. You need to consider the way I'm using my platform to tell honest, truthful, credible, factual human stories and grassroots solutions to human problems. Figuring out honest ways to solve our problems, ways that consider the greater good, ways that everybody can live with, ways that are within boundaries, ways that don't disrespect people, ways that respect people, where you do no harm in the process of telling your stories. Consider that Susan Reynolds, Voice of San Francisco. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You're really low. Maybe you need to come here to Jamaica to get your mind right, get your head clear. I'm willing to accept your apology, but you still need an attorney. Get you an attorney, you and Stanley Roberts both, okay? And keep my name out of your mouth. All right, everybody, Alicia Mayo of Clari-T Media signing out and thanking you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys on the next live stream. It's going to be much better than this. I promise you. We're going to have some fun, I promise, okay? See you then.